So today, actually just on the treadmill instead of stair stepper. We had our leg day yesterday, and reducing the time to 20 minutes instead of the full 30 on the stair stepper yesterday morning for legs was definitely the call. On the knees, or the right knee that has the patella problem going on. Felt pretty good throughout leg day yesterday, but it was definitely pretty sore last night, a few hours afterwards. So, but it did get through the whole workout with no tenderness, anything like that. So it's definitely slowly healing up. But this morning definitely felt pretty tender. So, because of that, we're on the treadmill. I just, on the stair stepper, you kind of put your knee under a lot more load having to actually step versus just walking up like a really steep ramp. So, now don't get me wrong, I've got the angle on this thing pretty cranked up. So, it's still challenging. I will say my hamstrings, my calves actually feel the treadmill a lot more than the stair stepper. Stair stepper, I feel a lot of glute, a lot of quad, but not a lot of hamstring. On this, I'm feeling way more calf and hamstring. So, I think this will be what we do for the morning cardio after our leg day. It feels quite a bit more beneficial. So, as you kind of go along and you get used to training, you train heavy, you train a lot of volume, things like that, you're going to develop little tweaks and strains here and there. And you'll figure it out. Like, hey, I got to back down on this style of movement or this angle. In a month or two, it'll be good and ready to go again. But during that period of time, you learn how to be able to adapt, hit the same muscle groups, or your same overall goal of what that training was supposed to be doing by doing it a different way. So you kind of expand your knowledge of how your body likes to function, as well as the library you have of what you can do to manipulate something. So I feel like, sure, those strains and minor injuries and stuff, you want to avoid those as much as possible. But I do definitely feel like they're a kind of like a learning point that most people are going to have to figure out. Because, even the person who trains perfectly still has minor injuries and strains here and there. Either it's from overusage, they went a little too heavy, they might have slept a little messed up, didn't drink enough water, didn't stretch enough, whatever, right? So, because it's not only your diet and say like hydration that affects possibility of an injury, but also like just overall life circumstances. Say you've got a newborn baby, you're sleeping a lot less, right? So you're going to recover less, you're going to be more sore all the time. So that's just one instance. Maybe you're in college, you're cramming for tests, you're mentally strained, getting less sleep. So these things just kind of happen, even if you're not intentionally, like ego lifting or something like that. So, like you know, you decided to go play a soccer game, go play some baseball, go golfing. It's like, oh man, like my shoulder hurts now, or my elbow hurts, or maybe I stepped in a golfer hole and I twisted my ankle. Who knows? Random stuff happens. It's not about skipping the gym while you wait for that to recover. You figure out what you can train without making that worse. And that's kind of part of that being consistent, right? So, with that, it's one of those things that just kind of comes in time, and it's going to separate those that are dedicated versus motivated. If you're motivated, you're not coming with an injury because you're not motivated to be here. If you're dedicated, you're going to come in and train. So you could break a leg and you'll be in here doing chest and arms, shoulders. So break an arm, you're going to fucking start enjoying leg day. So it's just kind of one of those things, like, you know, there's 1,000 excuses not to do something. But there's always a reason to do it. So that kind of applies to a lot of things, right? Applying for a job you don't think you're qualified for. Approaching a chick, cold, never met her, just random girl. It's always what's going to happen until you know. Move on to the next one. Go ask out 10 chicks in a row walking down a sidewalk. But there's always reasons or excuses not to do it, right? But it's kind of one of those things that right now, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I really love me like a Chipotle burrito or some sushi. Pizza sounds pretty damn delicious. But this morning we woke up, we weighed in 214 and a half. So we matched last week's low and last week's Sunday weigh-in goal. Today is Thursday. So here in Friday's out. So 2.5 days basically, because Sunday morning I'm supposed to weigh in to 12.5 to be on market. I've got 2 pounds to go to reach that. Next week, 210.5. So, like I was saying, I'm not going to allow myself a cheat meal until I'm 2.5 pounds ahead of that week's goal. So, if for example, next week I'm supposed to be 210.5, I've got to hit 208. At 208, I can go ahead and have me a cheat meal. And it's definitely not going to be like Zaxby's again, I'll tell you that. As delicious as it is, it was not worth the 5-pound jump up from all of the just straight sugars and carbs that is so dense in. So, I mean, granted, pizza's kind of the same way, but the pizza, oddly enough, is less calories than Zaxby's. So, it seems like my body responds better to processing the pizza versus Zaxby's. It's probably because of the sauces and the preservatives and everything else that's in the breading for the chicken and the sauce versus some fresh made dough from Marco's. So, and then it's just cheese, pepperoni. not the best. I mean, it's delicious, but I'm saying not the best as in like protein and macros. Macro-wise, the best would probably be say Chipotle, or maybe go into Carrabba's, get into the Johnny, so you know, a steak, piece of chicken, and some stuffed raviolis, you know, nice balanced meal. I really wouldn't call that a cheat meal, because it's mostly all just protein anyways. So that's more of, if it fits your macros, you can have it type of meal. Because I get the 10-ounce sirloin, plus the, probably I'd call it 5 ounces of chicken, maybe 6. Then there's 6 raviolis. The whole plate comes to 1,130 calories. I get the little Caesar salad. I end up drinking 2 glasses of sweet tea. So the whole meal ends up being like 1,550, 1,600 calories. But even at 1,600 calories, it's, total protein is probably 75, 80 grams of protein in that one meal. So that's not terrible. I basically try to hit a protein mark of, you know, if I times it by 200, that's my total caloric intake for the day, or goal, I should say. Or I guess that math is a little off. When you think about this, I guess it'd be times 100. No. Times 10, sorry. So I'm getting in like 175 grams for 1,800 calories. So if I could hit 180 times it by 10, it'd be 1,800. So, but that's you know, more or less the way I'm kind of looking at it. So now I will say I can tell my heart rate is staying quite a bit more stable too on the treadmill versus the stair stepper. This kind of slowly ramped up. It's just kind of hung out, as to where on the stair stepper I can feel it ramp extremely fast to that like 125 range. Then it hangs out there for a while. And then heading into that like 8-minute mark or so, it's slowly starts kind of ramping up higher now. And then kind of stabilizes again in the upper 130s. So that's why I kind of only do 11 minutes at a time, because that might give it time to bring my heart rate back down. So we're quote unquote in zone 2, cardiovascular fucking endurance, for what we're going to target for energy sources, which is going to be more fat than it is muscle tissue. The higher your heart rate goes, the more muscle tissue your body's going to burn, because it can break it down faster than fat. Which, that looks great on the scale, but for what we're trying to do, it's not good. We're not trying to be skinny, we're trying to be lean. So we want to try to preserve as much muscle tissue as we possibly can. With that, guys, just want to kind of end the day off right there with a talk. So make sure you're out there working with your kids, getting your stuff done. Most of all, just don't be a lazy fuck.